Welcome to LRA Live. This morning, we're going to have a brand experience with PJ's Coffee and New Orleans Roast. I'm Wendy Warren with the LRA, and I'll be joined by Felton Jones, who's the roast master with PJ's and New Orleans Roast. And he's going to talk to us about what makes specialty coffee special. I'm very interested in learning that. He has been a roast master since the early 2000s, and he started with PJ's while he was in school at Xavier University pursuing a mechanical engineering degree. But he fell in love with coffee, and the rest, 30 years later, history. Welcome, Felton. So now I'm going to turn it over to my friend Felton Jones, and he's going to talk to us about what makes specialty coffee special. Welcome, Felton.
Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. So yeah, I'd love to just dive right on into what makes specialty coffee special for not just us at PJ's Coffee and New Orleans Roast, but just coffee in general. So, for us, coffee is at the heart of our history. Our founder, Phyllis Jordan, started the company back in 1978, and we've always had this passion to just ignite and inspire our customers as they enjoy just drinking good quality coffee. So, currently we have over 125, locations here in the United States, with a handful of locations abroad in both places like Kuwait and Vietnam. But we're creating an experience for each customer that walks through our doors. We want this experience to be extraordinary, and it's all about engagement and conversation in a welcoming environment that surrounds the customers. We have a myriad of partners to whom we work with and create and extend this same extraordinary experience to, and that is, why we're here today. We want to make certain that we appeal to, some of our potential new partners. Mm-hmm. So it starts with our careful selection, Wendy. PJ's and New Orleans Roast are very well known, for our quality coffees. We do care about how our coffees are sourced, so we source ethically, and our roasting expertise is what we feel makes us different, makes us special. Each coffee is selected for its defining qualities that distinguishes regions, hence why coffees from around the world taste different from each other, although most people have not had the experience to be able to taste these side by side. If you ever get that opportunity, it's quite amazing, the differences in the cups. This process for us is a very meticulous process, and we take it very seriously. So it starts with our direct trade relationships, and building relationships with farmers is how we've earned our way to this success and ensure that we have the ability to sustain this quality. We search for those who bring the same passion to growing and harvesting and processing that we bring to blending, roasting, flavoring, grinding, packing and brewing. Passion equals attention to detail at every step, and that's what it's all about for us. The quality of a cup, it starts with the soil. And PJ's and New Orleans Roast are unique because we work directly with these farmers, all the way from bean to cup, building long-term relationships with importers, farmers, agronomers as well, and their communities. You know, we know that our success is linked to their success. We know that our support of them is what ensures that they come back year after year and continue to grow quality coffee. And we invest in it for that reason, as well as to, you know, increase quality of life, or elevate quality of life.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? I know that, you know, I met Al Lopez, who has the farm. Can you just tell us a little bit about that whole community that was basically resurrected by Al and his coffee farm?
Absolutely. So, you know, when we go there, there's farms all over the place, and we have to pass by and through several of these farms on our way to Cinco Terrorito. And what Al has done a great job at is he has capitalized on this relationship with PJ's, you know, in a very commendable way, in a very focused way. And so our support of just simply helping to ensure that they have the means necessary to produce a quality coffee bean, and then our support and commitment to purchase all of those coffee beans in turn means that the farm can sustain itself. So we're building better quality of life for all of the families on the farm. You know, when it comes to sleeping quarters, when it comes to them having cooking quarters, so they're not outside cooking over fires, they're actually in a building that is made for them to cook in with. I think we built like 18 wood burning stoves within this building. We properly ventilated it so that it's not infiltrating the living and sleeping quarters with smoke. We provide, there's a plethora of fruit trees available that they all have access to. There's dairy cows on the farm, so they get fresh milk. There's a tilapia pond that is on the property, and they fish from there. And that farm is probably one of the most intriguing things to me, because every year, because the people of Honduras are very religious people, and so Easter is a very religious and recognized time of year for them. And so every year, right before Easter, we drain that pond, and we take the remaining fish, bag it, and go into that local community and give out fish to the people in the community. More recently, our farm, because of how well it's equipped and sustained, our farm has played a key role in the hurricane recovery. So we have things like, we have a bulldozer on the farm, we have a backhoe on the farm, and those two pieces of equipment, without that being in that local area, that local town of Joaquin, they actually had roads that were washed out and just, you know, prevented access. So with the help of our heavy equipment, they were actually able to move dirt and bedrocks and, you know, and build temporary roads to, you know, to keep commerce going, to keep people having a way in and out to go and get, you know, whether it's medical care or, you know, just food or to go to work, you know. So, but as far as the families, there are about 200 people that work on the farm during the picking season, which is between November and April. And they are all self-sufficient there. So, you know, we have all of their needs taken care of, you know, food, lodging, the whole 9 yards. So,
and healthcare, you guys.
And healthcare. Actually, we have a PJ's ambulance on the property transporting. So, and so that's what we do. And I'd like to say, you know, this direct trade, this term direct trade is becoming more widely used. What I'm very proud of for both PJ's and New Orleans Roast is that we have struggled for a long time to figure out how to tell this story. But along the way, we've continued to do what we've done. And so now as we talk about it, I love the fact that I can say to you what we have done and now what we're going to be doing. And that makes a big, big difference, you know. So we'd like the story to be more widely told, but we're just happy with the way that we're changing lives, because that's what it really is all about.
Well, and I think that it's important for you to, for the viewers of this series to know that companies like PJ's and New Orleans Roast are Louisiana based, and we're a community that supports our supports each other. And this is something that Al Lopez used his family land
Absolutely.
to build this farm,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it gives the folks there employment and resources that otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really something to have that connection with you guys and them. And Al is just such a gracious, and he retired from his career as
Yes.
I forgot what he was told me he
He was a
did.
CFO of
Yeah,
Dole
yeah,
Fruit Company.
yeah,
When,
yeah.
you know, yeah. So
So
it's been great. He's a great partner because although he's had so much tremendous success throughout his career, especially here in the United States, um, this is where he was born and raised, and so
right.
it's in his blood, and he knows firsthand what it means to these guys. And then, I've been going to the farm now a couple of times a year for about 5 years now, and at least one time a year, I bring people with me. I typically
Mhm.
bring either PJ franchisees, or if there's any customers that wanted to come along. We have plenty of space, and it changes lives. It changes
Yeah,
their lives.
yeah,
So, but let's get into brewing. So there's
yeah.
four fundamentals of brewing. Great cup of coffee starts with regularly maintained brewing equipment, first and foremost. Um, and it has high quality ingredients and the right recipe. Freshly ground coffee and water are the only ingredients in coffee. Water represents 98% of what's in our cups every time we pour a cup of coffee. So follow the guidelines and you can't go wrong. So let's start with proportion. Using the proper proportion of coffee to water is really important. I myself am guilty sometimes of just eyeing when I'm throwing those grinds in at home, wake up
You
early.
Yeah, you've been doing it long enough.
It's I have my off time sometimes, but to get really specific, the recipe for a great cup of coffee is 2 tablespoons of freshly ground coffee for every 6 fluid ounces of water. And if you look at everybody's bag, you'll see that those
Yeah.
same instructions. And we didn't invent the recipe. That standard is based on consumer research done way back in the 40s. Coffee is made with hot water, extracts and mixes with the flavor components in the ground coffee, and the proper proportion allows the extraction of the coffee flavors that to be rich, aromatic, and I can say that temperature is really, really a tremendous part of it. So uh, at home, you typically have the Mr. Coffee type of coffee brewer,
Mhm.
and it's designed to give you a good cup of coffee. But when people wonder why are certain coffee brewers, so expensive, or they come in so many different price variations, it's because of the components within. You want an ideal water temperature of 195 to 260
Okay. 100 and say it again.
between 195 and 206.
195 and 206.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next part that really gets commonly overlooked is the grind. The easiest, most widely available coffee grinder that you can buy. Myself and my colleagues, we call it a spice grinder, but it's the little grinder
Yeah,
that
I
you
have one.
put on your counter. You push a button, and it just, it's got this blade that goes around. So all commonly used methods of brewing coffee work the same way. Hot water passes through the grinds, but the grind is important because the fineness of a grind determines how much time the water and the coffee are in contact with each other. If coffee is ground too fine and the water stays in contact too long, it's going to result in over extraction and bitterness. If it's too coarse, then obviously that's where you get your weak. So, for example, the reason that espresso is so fine is because that water is pushed through that little group head really, really fast, and you get an extraction. I think the perfect shot of espresso is like a 19-second shot.
Okay.
So imagine getting your cup of coffee in 19 seconds. As far as drip grind is concerned, it's a little bit more coarser than espresso, and it's exactly what it says. The water is dripping over the coffee grinds, and that perfect timing, gives you the proper extraction. When you talk about cold brew, because a cold brew recipe is about 18 to 24 hours steeping time, because it's in contact that long, you need it to be coarse so that it doesn't over extract. So the average consumer who brews cold brew at home, and in some instances, restaurants who brew cold brew, but they're unaware of the frying requirements. If they take regular coffee that was ground with the intention of brewing it in their hot brewer and they use it in their cold brew, that's the reason why the iced coffee always comes out very bitter.
Okay.
Because the coffee grinds were too fine.
Gotcha.
So the correct grind is always going to be determined by the brewing method. Hence why it's always recommended to purchase your coffee in whole bean farm and grind it the way that's specific to your intended brewing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So water, as I said before, 98% of every cup of coffee is water. At home, we don't have, the average person does not have a water filter at home, but in our restaurants, we certainly do. We have to. We're in New Orleans, and so we have hard water. We have high calcium, very few places in New Orleans that have soft water. So not only is it something that's important to your equipment, because, very hard water can be very brutal to your equipment, but it's also going to be brutal to the taste of your coffee. So the water that you use to brew should taste clean, fresh, and be free of impurities. Very easy to achieve that with proper filtration in a commercial environment. At home, we just simply recommend either the filtered water from your refrigerator or bottled water. To ensure good coffee, avoid water from softeners, distilled water, municipal water that tastes like chlorine, and well water that may taste like iron or sulfur, because it will come through in the cup of coffee. Once again, you want it to be at a minimum of 195 degrees to get that perfect extraction.
Gotcha.
So freshness. So of all of the things that we do, one of the things that I do every day when I come to work is I'm watching the futures commodity market to see how coffee is priced and, whether it's trending up, whether it's trending down. And we lock in our futures based off of that. Well, when we bring these coffees in, one of the things that we try to avoid doing is just over roasting, as in quantity. We don't do just in time. Obviously, it would not be good for us with business, but we try to make certain that we maintain the perfect levels of inventory to ensure that coffee is going out the door in a reasonable time, and that we're keeping just enough inventory on the floor to make certain that we can always be responsive to our customers. Everything that I'm doing to determine what's a good green coffee bean, or fresh new coffee bean, or what's a fresh roast, or a great tasting roast, those are all qualities that make for a good cup of coffee. But the main thing is freshness. You can take coffee that was a lower grade and get it fresh or in a fresh state, and you put it next to another coffee that was a very high grade, but made from something that was old and stale, and you're probably going to prefer the lower grade coffee just because of the freshness factor. So I can't stress enough that freshness is key. And so one of the things behind our success, and as we call it, specialty coffee, it's specialty for a reason. And in order for the customers to be able to experience what that specialty is about, we have to ensure that it's fresh. So we try to get coffee in the roaster, out of the roaster, and immediately into the packaging so that we can preserve that freshness.
And you guys, it's kind of cold in that plant, right?
Yeah.
As I remember, it's always kind of cold in there.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. If you've not been, I've been. It's a great little facility in the Marini area, right on the river in New Orleans, and you walk in and there's all these just stacks of beans and bags, your coffee bags from on the wall with the stamps from wherever they're from. It's
Yeah.
just and then you go into the little roasting room and I've had your personal tour a couple times, and then you
And walk
give
out
me
with some of the freshest samples you can find.
yeah, you go,
So
here, taste this one, taste this
yeah,
one. What about
so
this one?
I can tell you that the most intriguing thing to anyone that visits our facility is, when they ask questions like, how many different places from around the world are we bringing coffee in from? And we typically have coffee from 12 to 14 different places around the world. And that seems to be a crazy number when you look at all of the different varieties of coffees that we offer, whether it be in our PJ's cafes or, on the grocery store shelf. And the real intriguing thing about it is that I explained to everyone, something like a Colombian coffee has about 5 different uses for us in our warehouse.
Okay.
And each of those applications provides a different taste profile. So coffee is very unique in that sense, and for all of our wine drinkers, we all know how different wines can taste, different brands, different labels,
The
it's within.
terroir.
Yeah, exactly. And so wine has roughly about 150 different flavor, influence, and characteristics. Coffee has over 700.
Wow.
So you have so much flexibility with any one particular coffee bean. So everything from medium roast to light roast to dark roast to espressos, you can do many different things with those, all of those different profiles.
Can you tell me about the roast? Because I'm a medium roast.
Yeah.
But some people are dark roast. Like, can you give me a little breakdown on like the difference?
Sure. So
Okay.
I will tell you that I am most appreciative of our medium roast drinkers. And the reason why is people don't choose medium roast because it's lighter or it's, less harsh than the dark roast. They typically choose medium roast because they like the flavor. You can identify the true intended characteristics of the beans in the form of a medium roast. Your dark roast will have a tendency to start going towards the side of smokiness. You get that bold, sometimes bitterness. The misconception is that a lot of people who choose dark roast, they choose it because they say, I want a strong cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Well, that medium roast has more caffeine than that dark roast. Because in order to get that dark roast to that point, as you cook it longer, you're lowering the caffeine.
Gotcha.
So even the espresso has less caffeine than the medium roast does.
Okay, so I have another question. You going back to the Colombian beans that have 5 different uses. So are you blending different beans from different places?
Absolutely, we are.
Okay.
So what we do is we identify what are the typical characteristics of a particular origin. And so if you know that Brazil tends to have a nutty profile, you can pair that up. So I'll give you a little bit of a secret. So we have a Windsor Port blend that we've been carrying for decades now. And the Windsor Port blend takes the fruitiness of a Colombia bean and blends it with the nuttiness of a Brazil bean. And they complement each other very well. And that's where you get that, very tasty, flavorful, cup of coffee. And so we do things like that. And then, for select origins, depending on what their known characteristic is, we will offer that in what we call a single origin. So Colombia is available at our stores as a Colombia Supremo, which is 100% medium roasted Colombia. But then we can dark roast it, and we also put that in the bag, and we call that our French breakfast. So the same exact bean, 2 completely different flavor profiles.
Gotcha.
That's where I start to have fun in the roasting.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, because you're the, you're kind of like you're the distiller. Like if you're, boy, I'm gonna add this. You're the master of your own. Yeah.
I get coffees from all over the world. People always bring me samples of coffees and try this. You know, the distiller gets it. You know, he's got a little bit more of a fun job in that. You know, they get to taste a lot of bourbon. You know, a lot of so. But so some of our partners, Wendy, you know, we have had very long-term relationships with the Roosevelt, Russell Nest, and Montreal hotels. These, you know, as you can see in this picture, they not only have their own bags, but each of them have their own unique blends that you can only purchase at their properties. Our newest relationship, we're into the COVID kind of put a little bit of a hurdle in play for us, but this was going to be our third year with Zulu, and we plan to continue doing so. And we had obviously, you know, we want to appeal to our flavored coffee lovers and our non-flavored coffee lovers. So we have a Zulu that's non-flavored, just a regular Zulu blend. But Zulu wouldn't be Zulu if we didn't have a coconut flavored coffee. So, and then Tommy Bahama, we do all of their coffees, and they have a host of varieties from, you know, house blend to Kona, and they also do a lot of coconut as well. Bruce Chris has been someone that we've been doing business with for a long time. We provide espresso to Desert Vegas, and Copeland's has been a very long-standing customer.
So can we back up to the flavor coffee,
Yeah.
the flavor coffees?
Sure.
How do you, so you take a coffee that you've roasted or you've done, and then you're adding, is it a liquid flavor? Is it actual coconut essence? Like how do you do that?
So we use a water-soluble flavoring. It's a liquid.
Okay.
And it's a highly concentrated, most people refer to it as flavor oil.
Okay.
So it's very concentrated. It's much different than when you go into any cafe, PJ's or any other, you'll see, you know, a rack behind the counter that has all of these different bottles of flavorings. And those are flavors that, you know, it's a hazelnut, it's a pecan, it's a vanilla. And obviously the main ingredient to all of those flavors is like corn syrup. The flavoring that we are using when we produce a flavored coffee in a bag is nothing like that. It's a flavor that has the flavor components of a pecan or a hazelnut or a coconut, but there's no sweeteners in there. So we're not adding calories or anything like that. And the beauty of it is that the difference between getting a cup of coffee at the counter in the cafe and asking for a shot of hazelnut versus having a cup of hazelnut coffee that was brewed from hazelnut beans is one's going to have a lot of sugar and sweetener in it, and the other one you're just going to taste coffee and hazelnut, you know. And for us, what we have found is that the flavors do exceptionally well as a cold brew. So, you know, when individuals are kind of dipping their toes in the water to try cold brew for the first time, usually the best way to try it is with a flavor, because it's like a dessert in a glass.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Because I, you know, as a consumer that goes in and gets coffee, that I notice that. But then when I go to a retail, I see, you know, the jingle bells with the cinnamon, and you know that's my favorite during Christmas. I like as soon as that pumpkin spice ends with Thanksgiving, I'm right there with the jingle bells for Christmas.
So you're a jingle bell person, and I'm a Southern wedding cake person. So that June time of year for me is the time. But you know, you just said something. You're a consumer, Wendy, and if you do cold brew at home, earlier we talked about the grind being important. One of the things that we're pretty unique about is we're one of the few options that you'll find that we sell whole bean flavor. And the reason that's important is it goes back to the grind. If you look at what you typically see out there for flavored coffees, they're always pre-ground. Well, if the coffee is pre-ground, you have to know what it's intended for as a brewing method.
Right.
And 90% of the time, it's going to be for hot drip. So for us, by us offering whole bean, Well, if you want to enjoy a French press or a, or a hot drip or a cold brew, we offer the whole bean, allowing you to grind it for your preference. And
Right.
most roasters do try to stay away from whole bean flavored coffee because there's a lot of extra steps involved. But we don't mind taking those steps because it's what Phyllis intended, and we've been doing it, for over 40 years now.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, if you'd love to get your coffee journey started with us, we have a very well-trained, well-skilled team. You would start out with an introduction to our roasting facility, as Wendy said earlier, with a nice tour. Typically, you walk away with a nice fresh bag of coffee from that tour too, but we won't tell anybody. Sit with us. What I typically like to do is just sit down. I'll get some preliminary ideas from you of what you might be looking for, and I'll put some offerings out, and then get feedback from you, and we can tweak those offerings if necessary, or we can create new offerings. And then once we settle in on what it is exactly that you're looking for, then we have our in-house graphics team that will get together with you depending on the volume, and then final product selection. So we walk you through the entire process. Some of our customers choose to go all the way through the process, and the end result is a Roosevelt Royal Semester or Model Leon type of setup. But most of our customers, and we love them for this, they want to just be able to say that our coffee, our name, PJ's Coffee is a partner of theirs. And so we, instead of focusing on what's on the outside of the bag, we focus on what's on the inside of the bag to get them what they want. And with the things that we help out with, we have, expert brewing methods with people that are well trained, to know exactly what to do. Quality and setup, we have our own division in our company that actually sets up the equipment. Those guys are well trained as well to ensure that after setup, the equipment is properly calibrated and whatnot. And then educating your staff is extremely important. So from the time that the guys are setting up, they start the education process so that the people in your establishment become familiar with the equipment. And then our other team members, i.e. sales staff, operations support, can come in and train your staff. And in some instances, even myself.
Well, that would be very beneficial because I know I have a lot of coffee questions.
Yeah. Yeah, but you have a way to just dial 7 digits and get those.
Oh yeah, I could just call you direct, right?
So for more information, contact Alan Gilbo. He is our Executive Vice President of Sales, and he's the guy that would be able to get most of those questions answered. He's done this,
for a long time.
Yeah, so he can definitely get you taken care of. But yeah, we'd love to increase our coffee family.
Yeah, and I appreciate you taking your time. You're definitely in the LRA's coffee family. Alan is on our executive committee at the LRA.
Yeah.
We have some evangelists in the building like myself who drink PJs regularly.
We didn't plan that.
That's my daiquiri cup too. So thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions, you can always call the LRA, contact us at communications@lra.org, and we'll put you in contact with Felton or Alan. And of course, we hope to have Felton back in the future to further educate us on how to enjoy coffee. And also, I want to mention that Felton is a Louisiana restaurant legend for his longtime service to not only PJ's and New Orleans Roast, but to our industry. So he's a great resource that we have right here in New Orleans.
I am honored.
Thank you so much.
All right, Wendy, thank you.
All right, talk soon.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.